Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Tom Fitton. I'm president of Judicial Watch, and Judicial Watch is a conservative, nonpartisan educational foundation dedicated to promoting transparency and integrity and accountability in government, politics, and the law. Through its educational endeavors, Judicial Watch advocates high standards of ethics and morality in our nation's public life and seeks to ensure that political and judicial officials obey the law and do not abuse the powers entrusted to them by the American people. Judicial Watch does not endorse or oppose candidates for public office. Our topic this afternoon is Election 2008, What the Media Isn't Telling You. When it comes to the coverage of presidential campaigns, many criticize the press for focusing on the so-called horse race issues as opposed to the important public policy issues at stake in elections. Some of this criticism is justified, some of it is not justified. Yes, the major media covers who's up and who's down and often just repeats the story of the day pushed by individual campaigns. But it is up to candidates, activists, and independent groups to highlight issues that advance the public debate beyond the latest poll numbers, delegate counts, and electoral college math. Our goal here today is not necessarily to bash the press, but to highlight issues that deserve more coverage from media during this election year. For example, why is it that Hillary Clinton's past ethics record has virtually been ignored? She's been the subject of a grand jury investigation and escaped indictment for perjury and obstruction of justice by the skin of her teeth. Yet this is coyly referred to as baggage by most of the media, even by Hillary herself. Jerry Sieper of the Washington Times recently uncovered some amazing documents that chronicle the concerns federal investigators had about her criminality. These stories were just reported in the last week. But if this new information has been reported anywhere else, I haven't seen it. Nearly 2 years ago, Democrats rode the anti-corruption issue all the way to the majority control of Congress. Yet while indicted members of both parties continue to sit in Congress, corruption has faded as an important policy issue, despite the questionable resumes of leading candidates for the presidency. As I've already noted, the story of Hillary corruption is long and deep. But Barack Obama is being given a pass on corruption issues as well. I'm not talking about his racist life coach, Jeremiah Wright. Tony Rezko, who is waiting as we speak, I think, for a jury verdict on corruption charges against him, is a longtime and close supporter of Obama. Rezko provided significant funding for Obama's initial political campaigns. Even after it became known he was the subject of corruption investigations, Senator Obama entered into real estate dealings with him that even the senator has now admitted were boneheaded. Hillary is never going to talk about Rezko. She has Whitewater in her background. Other than Obama's hometown newspaper, the Chicago Tribune, there's been little sustained interest by our media or political elites in Obama's evolving story and his connections to this thoroughly corrupt individual. On a related issue, how many in the public know that the Federal Election Commission, known as the FEC, the agency charged with policing our campaign finance system, is shut down because Republicans and Democrats can't agree on who to appoint to run it? In a presidential election year, this key agency charged with policing the campaign finance system is on life support and is unable to issue decisions or levy fines. Isn't this convenient for all the presidential candidates and for all the candidates for federal office, such as the entire House and about a third of the Senate? We filed FEC complaints recently concerning both Hillary Clinton and John McCain, and I'm sure both are happy that the FEC impasse ensures that not much will be done on these and other pending issues until well after the election. And then there's the issue of judges. Through the use of the filibuster and other tactics, the refusal by Senate liberals to consider judicial nominations for up or down Senate votes has been a constitutional abomination throughout the entire Bush presidency. It is especially egregious during this election year, as 17 judicial emergencies created by vacancies in various courts are allowed to fester. One would think there might be more focus on the Senate's role in all this, since the leading presidential candidates this year are all U.S. senators. I've only scratched the surface of issues that deserve more coverage by the media during this election year. Corruption, judicial emergencies, the selection of judges, the collapse of the rule of law, and campaign finance are important enough. But I'm sure our panelists here today will educate us even more on these and other important issues. Joining us is a tremendous panel. Cliff Kincaid, to my right here, serves as president of America's Survival, Inc., a watchdog group, and as an editor of the Accuracy of Media's AIM report. A veteran journalist and media critic, Cliff graduated from the University of Toledo and came to Washington through a national journalism program headed by conservative author and journalist M. Staten Evans. Cliff served on the staff of Human Events for several years and was an editorial writer and newsletter editor for former National Security Council staffer Ollie North at his Freedom Alliance Educational Foundation. He has written or co-authored 9 books on media and cultural affairs and foreign policy issues. To my left is James Bopp Jr., who's an attorney with the law firm of Bopp, Colson, and Bostrom in Terre Haute, Indiana. And he also serves as general counsel for the James Madison Center for Free Speech. A noted pro-life legal advocate, Jim is also one of the country's leading attorneys on campaign finance and election law. His extensive Supreme Court practice includes successfully arguing the landmark United States Supreme Court cases which resulted in rulings that struck down restrictions on the speech of candidates for elected judicial office on First Amendment grounds, that struck down Vermont's mandatory candidate expenditure limits and candidate contribution limits, and that held that McCain-Feingold's electioneering communication prohibition is unconstitutional as applied to grassroots groups' lobbying ads. His successful federal election law litigation includes striking down 6 sets of Federal Election Commission regulations. And joining us, I'm glad to see you here, Kurt. Kurt Levy is Executive Director of the Committee for Justice, the premier organization devoted to putting constitutionalist judges on the Supreme Court and the lower federal courts. After graduating Harvard Law with honors and clerking for the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Sixth Circuit, Mr. Levy serves as Director of Legal and Public Affairs at the Center. Served as Director of Legal and Public Affairs at the Center for Individual Rights, a public interest law firm in Washington, D.C. There, he worked on landmark Supreme Court cases, including the University of Michigan affirmative action cases. He also served for a time with the U.S. Department of Education's Office for Civil Rights. He has an MS and BA in computer science from Brown University, and he worked in the field, I think this is great, of artificial intelligence before attending law school, and invented a new type of AI technology for which he wrote a successful patent application. I know there's a joke there somewhere, but
the typical joke is,
everyone
I have artificial intelligence.
That's good. The way the panel will work is our panelists will make their own individual remarks. We'll talk amongst ourselves up here for a bit, and then we'll include the audience members with questions and comments. And if you could, when you're called upon, identify yourself and speak into the microphone. We want to have your questions recorded for posterity, so it's important to use the microphone when asking or making comments. I'll start off with Mr. Cliff Kincaid.